That movie nut here with a review for Bicentennial Man, the 1999 science fiction drama starring Robin Williams. Story based partly on the novel by master of science fiction Isaac Asimov. Set in an alternate 2005, this follows a family called the Martins who buy a robot called Andrew, who, while initially a household appliance, slowly starts learning human emotion, various traits such as creativity. For instance, when one of the girls loses a favorite toy horse, he makes a new one from wood. Gradually, he starts to develop a free will of sorts, and eventually goes on a quest to find other robots, and ultimately begin to becoming a human being. First thing to comment on before I get into the usual stuff is, of course, the robot himself, played by Williams. There's no secret, it is very obvious that it's obviously Williams in a suit, but to be fair, the suit is very well designed. It's not as cheesy as one would expect. It's still obvious, but to be fair, it does look fairly futuristic. It has an Art Deco styling to it, which is interesting, and the suit itself feels very Asimov-y. It feels like something out of an illustration for an Asimov story. As for the acting, it's decent all around. It's filled with good players such as Neil and Oliver Platt, who bring their share of humanity and humour to the film. But the big name, of course, is Robin Williams himself as Andrew. Now, of course, because he is stuck in the suit most of the movie, he really doesn't get to express much in the way of emotions, but his voice fits the robot, and he does manage to use little new movements in the suit to indicate certain feelings. And once he turns human, he pulls off a decent performance. He's sympathetic and likable, in spite of the somewhat cliche romance. The girl who plays one of the Martin family, and of course later plays her own granddaughter, is the same actress as Mrs. Honey from Matilda. I don't remember her name right now, but she pulls off a likable performance. Again, much like Williams, it's nothing Oscar-worthy, but they managed to pull off a tolerable romance, although the chemistry is not very strong. The design of the world, carrying on from what I was talking about the robot, really is nothing to marvel at. There are points where it does look futuristic, but in all fairness, it looks like they just CGI'd billboards and lasers and things onto obvious, film clips of San Francisco and other cities, and just added, as I said, laser screens and other things. So, however, it does feel realistic. This does feel more like a realistic kind of a future than things like something out of the Jetsons. Here, at least the future is more believable, albeit not very fantastical. But now for the thing that everybody talks about with this movie, the script. Never have I seen one movie be so debated on so many different places. People either praising it as an underrated masterpiece, or people accusing it of being maudlin and Saracen in the same sense as Patch Adams. Me personally, I didn't mind. It wasn't the greatest script ever, and to be fair, it could have been more faithful to the novel and maybe not had some unnecessary moments like the robot saying, "Will you help me fix this piece of shit?" Little moments like that could have been cut out of the movie, or altered. But to be fair, the script does hold fair through the movie. However, it does suffer from a little thing which I find typical of movies from the late 90s. It can't really decide what it wants to be. The first half of the movie, where he's the robot and with the family, plays out very much like a cutesy, typical Williams 90s sort of family comedy. With various things such as the robot being, stupid enough to fall through a window when one of the owner tells him to. But when we get to the second half of the movie, when he begins the transition to a human being, it plays out more like a mature drama. Not the most effective thing ever, but plausible. At least it makes sense. At least it feels more like how it would realistically happen. It doesn't try to be overtly glossy like a lot of these sorts of films do, where they overdo certain things. Here, there are moments where they do overdo it and the music can become very manipulative, and it is no secret that Columbus has had a history of doing manipulative things with his movies to make the audience feel things. But it never bothered me enough. When it wanted me to cry, I cried. When it wanted me to be happy, I was happy. So it's a movie which, while it doesn't exactly leave the decisions up to its own audience completely, it does pull off a decent job in the dramatic department. And so I give Bicentennial Man a bronze star, but it's a high one. For me, this is very much, again, much like Hook, it's a love or hate situation. You will either think of the film as an underrated masterpiece and probably Columbus's best film, or you will think of it as a very maudlin and Saracen manipulation machine. Personally, I thought it was enjoyable. I liked the things about it. I liked the ideas that the film presented. It didn't explore them as fully as it could have if it had stayed closer to the novel, but in all fairness, it still pulls off a decent job.